Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV viewers and listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Heads. I am your host, Mariska du Preez, and today's topic is all around difficult conversations. Yes, we're going to discuss 3 tips for successful conversations when it comes to those ones that we typically rather would like to enjoy avoiding. Of course, avoiding is not one of those strategies. So we will definitely look at strategies to have successful conversations within that space. And as leaders, whether we are a brand new leader stepping into this leadership space, or whether we are a seasoned leader stepping further into our leadership space, this is one of those things that is really, really important for us to know how to do well. Because luckily, we don't do it every day, but when they do come up, we want to ensure that we are able to have a difficult conversation with a productive, nurturing outcome as far as possible. And yes, they are difficult for a reason. Now, typically with difficult conversations, a thing that we need to take into consideration is as well the emotional impact, not only of the conversation on the participants, which is us, as well as the person that we're talking to, but also the larger system. Because if that conversation didn't go as well and we didn't have a really effective, difficult conversation, it can definitely impact the rest of our team or the larger system as well. So there is a lot of reasons why doing this piece really well is very, very important. So without further ado, let's look at those 3 tips and how they work and how we might incorporate them a little bit more. So tip number 1 is preparation, preparation, preparation. Yes, when we go into this difficult conversation, it is not going to be by the seat of our pants. We don't want to wing it. We actually want to make sure that we have everything that we need in order to set ourselves and the other person up to have a good conversation. Now, what's the things that we need to take into consideration? First off, understanding the issue at hand. What exactly is the thing that we want to discuss? What exactly is the problem? So we need to really understand the issue, right? It is not about he said, she said, this thing, whatever the thing might be. We really want to get our figures and our facts straight and understand all the elements that is incorporated within this specific thing that we need to discuss. That is also part of getting all our relevant information. So making sure that we know exactly what the behavior is, not necessarily so say for instance, we have two colleagues and they had an argument about something. We need to understand exactly what the argument was about. We need to understand what was the behaviors that came out during that time. And we need to understand what the discussion, so the topic was about. So the better we can understand it, and typically, especially when we're working with human beings within different spaces, it is a little bit more tricky to get some of these things and the information that we need. So again, the reason why preparation is key. The next thing that we also need to take into consideration there is to really clarify our own thoughts and our feelings about the situation and what happened. The better we clarify it for ourselves as to how we think and feel about it, the easier it is to have this conversation. Remember, when we have a difficult conversation, emotions typically are already going to go all over the place. And we don't want ours to contribute to that. So we need to make sure that we understand the facts, not necessarily make up our minds as to what we want to have as an outcome, at least understand what it is that happened well enough in order for us to prepare ourselves in our thinking and feeling. Then what we also want to take into consideration is anticipating the response this other person might have. Now, we may or may not have worked with this person for a while. We know, hopefully, how they would typically react to any said situation. So we can have a good idea or a good hypothesis of what might happen once we bring this thing up. So our responses they will have will help us to also prepare. And we really want to make sure that we keep this space open and keep both of us on a above the line creative space as far as possible within this conversation. Now, you might think, you want me to do what? Yes. Creative helps us to think through the problems. It helps us to actually see different points of view. If we go into our own blocking stance, so the person might respond, we open the conversation, the person responds, and they start to attack us. That's their response of feeling threatened. Now, if our first response is to put up a block in front of us, a little shield, of course they will attack more. And then once we've put on the shield, literally our ears close. We don't listen anymore. We don't hear anything that other person is saying. We don't even try to understand anymore because our own shield is up. And then typically the next thing that would happen is we take a spear and start stabbing, which, of course, in these sort of situations, the worst thing that we can do. So we don't want to be doing that. We want to be open and we want to be prepared for whatever it is that we think they might throw at us. So we can stay with our shields lowered and as open to this conversation as possible. Then we also want to have a little bit of a game plan. So we want to think about, okay, what is the best way for us to open clearly at the beginning of this conversation, being succinct. And this is part of why we need to really understand what this is about. So we want to put as much clarity in the beginning of the conversation as possible. Of course, we want to make sure that the conversation is as open as possible, and come in with I want to understand into the space, not I'm going to attack you into the space. Because if we are going to enter the space with I want to attack you and I think you are wrong, already in the back of our mind, even before we opened our mouths, it is going to transmit to the other person. So we want to make sure that we are calm and open to whatever it is that they're going to bring. So that's the first one. We want to make sure that we prepare. Secondly, and I've touched on this a little bit throughout, is active listening. Listening is in general, in all conversations, really, really important. In this conversation, it almost goes to the next level. We need to make sure that we listen in order to understand, not to reply. They will say things, they will state their case, they will want to convince us of what it is that happened for them. And we need to be able to listen to what they say. Practice our active listening skills. Now, when we are practicing our active listening skills, one of the things that we also need to take into consideration is when they are stating their case, we do not want to interrupt them. We do not want to jump to solutions or conclusions. We want to listen to what they say and make sure that we clarify our understanding of what they are bringing to the table. We want to clarify that in order for us to work towards a solution together, not a solution that we came up with in our own heads, but a solution that we both came up with together. So those are the things that we need to bring into our listening. And another thing that we need to bring into our listening is that curiosity. Now, how do we bring curiosity in? We bring curiosity in by asking questions. And what this helps us with is it really helps us to understand the place that this person is coming from, their perspective, where they are looking from, and how it looks for them. We don't have to agree with it. We need to understand it first. Because if we understand it, then we can start to help and work with that. If we don't understand it, there's nothing we will be able to do, and both people will start to have their shields up. And that's definitely not going to be a very fruitful conversation. So we want to have open questions. Please, 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 when you ask a question, I have made a specific video around questions and how they work. The why question will only bring you reasons. The why question will also bring up the other person's shield. They will bring that up faster than you can bat your eyes. Please use all other questions, open-ended questions, and not the why question. Why questions are great when we are trying to do risk assessments and risk analysis, wonderful for that. In a difficult conversation, they are not our best friend. So we really want to take the why question and put it on the shelf somewhere and leave it there, because the only thing it will bring is it will bring that person's defenses, and it will bring a whole host of reasons that's not going to help us whatsoever. So focusing on questions around the what's, the how's, the when's, the where's, the who's, That makes sense. The whys, we don't want to listen to the whys because it only gives us a reason, which does not necessarily help the situation whatsoever. So, open-ended questions are key, bringing our curiosity really to cultivate the understanding of what exactly it is that happened, how it happened, and what it is that we might be able to do to resolve this issue, get to a solution. So that is our active listening piece. Then the next piece that we need to take into consideration is a constructive environment. Now, I've touched on this during the preparation piece already. When we think about our environment, it's really how we set that space up. And it's not only the physical space. So when we do our preparation, we need to think about an environment where we can have this conversation that has a physical calming effect. We do not want to have this conversation in a room where there's a red light and it's continuously flashing. If we are in that room, it will most probably create anxiety for both of us and not be very helpful to the situation whatsoever. So we want to have a room that has as much neutrality to it as possible. We want to make sure that we are able to have an open conversation. So thinking about, for instance, the place where we sit at the table. Do we have a round table? Do we have a square table or a rectangular table or an oval table? So the type of furniture that we have within our setting when we have this conversation will also make a difference. So if you think about, for instance, a round table, literally there's no corners to it. So nobody can be placed in an area where they are more superior than the other, which helps us in the way that we are saying we are equals within this conversation, and I really want to understand what it is that you are bringing in. I am not going to be forcing my ideas onto you. So understanding our physical environment, also taking note that when we have difficult conversations, we always want to have them in private, only with the person or people involved in that specific situation. We don't want the whole team to hear this. We don't want the whole office to hear this. We want to make sure that it only gets to the people that it pertains to, because that's the people that would need to be most vulnerable in this conversation. And we cannot be vulnerable when we feel judged. So that's the next piece that we need to take into consideration for our environment when we're creating this environment. We, as the leader, need to bring in a calmness. Again, that's going back to our preparation that we needed to do up front. We need to be able to be calm in order to bring that into the space. We need to be able to listen without judgment, to understand, to enable this in the space. If we are not in a space where we can truly say, you know what, I want to understand what it is that's going on here, we are not bringing all of that into the space. And the other person will know that. The other person will sense that. We are very well attuned human beings, and we all understand when we are under threat. It is one of those things that we developed really, really well early on already. So our amygdala will tell us if this person or this environment feel threatening, of course my shields are going to go up. I'm not going to listen. I'm going to be defending all the time. And that is not helpful for getting a productive outcome. So we want to make sure that we bring into this environment only the things that is going to be helpful for us to have a good conversation. So looking at our physical environment, we want to be looking at what we bring in emotionally and our own thinking. We also want to make sure that when we have this discussion, we focus on very specific behaviors. We don't want to be focusing on any feelings or anything that we hypothesize or have expected or have not put into writing and was very clear. We want to be focusing on the behavior, exactly how it looked like, and we want to focus on the facts. That's the only pieces that we are going to bring into this space. If there is something around an emotion or a feeling that is coming up for us, then we own it. If that's the thing that we need to discuss, we need to own it and say, I. So we use I statements. I feel this way. I feel that way. So it's my feelings, no one else's. It's my perspective, no one else's. And they may or may not agree with that. And that's fine because it's still mine. And they have their own. And that's fine too. That's why we are having this discussion in order for us to actually create a little bit more clarity around it and seeing how we can work together to get a good solution. So we want to take into consideration our behaviors and remember our I statements when it comes to emotions and feelings. Then we also want to collaboratively come up with a mutually agreed outcome or solution. The reason why we want to do this as a collaboration, as opposed to me telling the person or the leader telling the person, is because when we come up with that collaborative approach to it, it makes it a lot easier for the person to buy into it. This is already an emotionally charged environment. In an environment like that, to convince another person that we have the right idea is very, very difficult. So we want to make this as easy as possible. And the way to make it as easy as possible is to have a collaborative approach and using our open-ended questions to find out what they think would be the best way for us to proceed in order to get to an outcome that's favorable for everyone. And that way, we can collaborate around how that's going to look like and then agree on what the action steps will be. And this, of course, is one of the things that we also want to capture within our conversation. We want to make sure that we are very clear around what's the action steps and what's the things that we are going to do next in order for us to move past whatever the thing is that we are learning from. Another way to also frame this, not only for them, but also for ourselves, in order for us to move into this situation in a good way, is to think about it as a learning opportunity. For me as a leader, what can I learn that would help us not get into this type of situation again? And for them, what might they be able to learn in order for them to grow and not maybe do this type of thing again, if it was a behavior or a place that they got themselves all wrapped up into things that they weren't supposed to have. So this is a great way of thinking about how to have our difficult conversations. So when we have our difficult conversations, the 3 top things again. The first one, prepare, prepare, prepare. The second one, remember, to listen. And then the third one is ensuring that we create that environment that would actually support a constructive outcome or solution to the problem that we have worked on. If you have any questions around this or would like some more material, please do reach out to me. And you can do so via my email address, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. So the 2 is the number. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn and drop me a small little message to say that you got hold of me here via USA Global TV and Radio and would love to start a conversation. And we can explore what it is that maybe you need to know more about, either difficult conversations or how to grow into your leadership space and be the leader that everybody wants to have around them. Until next time, happy leading.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.